What is Kundalini awakening? 19 intense symptoms. Sooner or later on the spiritual awakening journey, we all taste the mysterious and intense Kundalini energy. It might be smooth and subtle, or it might be intense and explosive, but whatever the case, Kundalini is a primal force of awakening. In fact, sometimes people can experience full-blown Kundalini awakening spontaneously without any prior experience or interest in spiritual growth or transformation. Have you experienced a Kundalini awakening? If you're curious to discover whether you're going through Kundalini awakening or something else entirely, keep listening. What is Kundalini awakening? Put simply, a Kundalini awakening is a form of energetic awakening that causes us to transform on the mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. Kundalini itself is a Sanskrit word that means she who is coiled. It refers to primordial life force energy contained at the base of the spine that is often depicted as a snake. This serpentine energy, once awoken, travels up the various energy centers or chakras of the body and into your crown chakra, where higher consciousness is triggered. The result of this higher awareness is a greater understanding of one's soul or true nature, life purpose, and the nature of reality itself. 19 symptoms of the Kundalini awakening. As divine feminine energy, Kundalini usually lies dormant in the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine. However, there are a number of different situations where Kundalini can be suddenly awoken, spanning from trauma to drug use all the way to years of targeted practice, such as through Tantra or Kundalini Yoga. I'll now divide these Kundalini awakening symptoms into two groups for you to understand the light and the dark signs. But please note that Kundalini energy is neither good nor bad. It's quite simply a primordial force that lives within us. However, to the human mind, some of these experiences are pleasant and others are extremely unpleasant. Here are the light Kundalini awakening symptoms. How many of these can you relate to? The first one is you feel a spiritual connection with the divine that transcends the ego. You are bathed in bliss and boundless love. You experience periods of oneness where your compassion for humanity increases. You tap into extrasensory abilities and/or develop extraordinary gifts. Pleasurable sensations pulsate through your body. You're inspired to make big, life-altering decisions and authentic changes in your life. Synchronicity, i.e. meaningful or miraculous coincidences, increase tremendously. You have profound insights into your behavior and past experiences. Your empathic abilities strengthen and you can feel everything at a deep level. You begin to understand the nature of the mind and how it influences reality. And you keep receiving these big cosmic downloads of information or soul communication. Okay, and here are the dark Kundalini awakening symptoms. How many of these can you relate to? The first one is that you experience intense involuntary shaking of the body, which can be really alarming. Your nervous system becomes hypersensitive to external stresses, such as bright lights, TV violence, loud noises, etc., and it shuts down or it craves total solitude. You struggle to sleep properly. You might have a lot of insomnia. You experience sudden and shocking moments of ego death. You have visual disturbances that can feel quite alarming, such as objects seeming to vibrate. You experience intense heat, vibrations, or electricity surge throughout your body. It feels like you're having a bad drug trip while being sober, and you struggle to distinguish what is real from what is imagined, i.e. psychosis, and feel like you're going crazy. Alright, so here are some other Kundalini awakening symptoms which aren't as common that you might be experiencing. As someone who has experienced the energy of Kundalini move through me, I can say that it doesn't happen in the exact same way for everyone. One of the most recent experiences I've had, for instance, was preceded by 2 weeks of low-scale feelings of impending doom, followed by the Kundalini energy moving from my head and down through my body into my stomach. The energy felt gentle, like a soft breath of wind, and when it reached my stomach, it felt like it was working on something there, and then it just melted away and vanished. So here are some other symptoms that are perhaps less common, which you might be able to relate to. So the first is feeling shattered or fragmented and like you have no center. Dreaming of snakes or seeing snakes everywhere. This is symbolic of the Kundalini awakening. Feeling raw and extremely vulnerable like a newborn child. Manic and exuberant energy, or the opposite, chronic fatigue. And sometimes you might alternate between this intense burst of energy and this chronic fatigue. Frequent lucid dreams or vivid dreams. Seeing lights or hearing music that isn't there. Tapping into your past life experiences or other people's. Entering spontaneous yoga poses known as kriyas, mudras, which are hand poses, or pranayama, which is yogic breathing. Developing a savior complex or feelings of grandiosity. Feeling intense grief for the planet and all suffering beings. Out-of-body experiences where you may or may not connect with your higher self. Visual and hearing changes. Panic attacks and feelings of terror. Strange food cravings or aversions. Spontaneous orgasms. Developing strange, undiagnosable physical symptoms that may manifest as autoimmune conditions, digestive issues, nausea, etc. So how many of these symptoms that have been mentioned could you resonate with, could you relate to? Feel free to share in the comments below what your experiences have been like with Kundalini awakening. Can you relate to any? Are there any symptoms that haven't been mentioned that you'd like to bring up? Okay, is Kundalini awakening dangerous? This is a fair question, especially considering some of the symptoms mentioned just now. To answer the question, yes and no. Kundalini energy isn't innately dangerous or bad. It's our energy blockages that limit the flow of Kundalini that make it a painful, scary, and sometimes dangerous experience. In George Forstein's book, I hope I'm saying his name right, Tantra Path of Ecstasy, he explores why Kundalini can go haywire. He writes, without prior cleansing of the Nadi system, raising the serpent power, Kundalini Shakti, along the axial pathway, is not only impossible but also very dangerous to attempt. For instead of entering the central channel, Sushumna Nadi, it is likely to force itself into the Ida or the Pingala Nadi on either side of the central channel, causing immense havoc in the body and mind. That's where the end of the quote is. In other words, when Kundalini is prematurely stimulated or aroused in an incorrect way, aka through inadequate preparation and clearing of our energetic body, the results can be disastrous. Thankfully, the experience doesn't last forever, and we will explore what to do if you're experiencing the dark side of Kundalini in the article I wrote. You can find it linked below in the comments. But to further illustrate, Forstein goes on to quote the experience of yogi and mystic Gopi Krishna during his spontaneous Kundalini experience. He writes, "There were dreadful disturbances in all the organs, each so alarming and painful that I wonder how I managed to retain my self-possession under the onslaught. The whole delicate organism was burning, withering away, completely under the fiery blast racing through its interior. I knew I was dying and that my heart could not stand the tremendous strain for long. My throat was scorched and every part of my body flaming and burning. But I could do nothing to alleviate the dreadful suffering. If a well or river had been near, I would have jumped into its cold depths, preferring death to what I was undergoing. I racked my distracted brain for a way of escape, only to meet blank despair on every side. The effort exhausted me, and I felt myself sinking, dully conscious of the scalding sea of pain in which I was drowning." That's the end of the quote. I'll stop here because I know that this might be alarming to you, or alternatively it might be affirming because it will help you to see that you're not alone in what you've experienced. But in short, Kundalini is a mighty, potent force. If you're seeking to awaken it, be sure that you know what you're doing and seek out trustworthy guidance. This is not something to be trifled with. If you'd like to dive a little bit deeper into Kundalini, feel free to look below this video in the comments for the article I wrote on this topic. In this article, I go into the difference between spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening, the 5 hidden traps of Kundalini awakening, and also how to handle Kundalini awakening. So just go below into the comments and you'll see the article linked there, which you can read. So tell me, what has your experience been like with Kundalini awakening? I'd really love to hear your perspective, your insights, and what it meant for you to go through the Kundalini awakening. That would be really interesting to hear. Thank you so much for listening.